Iceland. A country born of fire and sculpted by ice. An island at the edge of the North Atlantic where the Earth never sits still. Volcanoes rise from the sea. Glaciers carve deep valleys. And black sands stretch like shadows across the coast. Few places on the planet change so quickly, or so dramatically. Here, molten rock pushes through the crust, creating new land. Only a short distance away, ancient ice still grips the mountains. It is a place where the planet shows its rawest forces side by side: heat and cold, creation and destruction. The waterfalls of Iceland thunder with meltwater from glaciers that have been retreating since the last ice age. Rivers twist through lava fields, cutting paths that seem impossible in such a wild landscape. To the north, geothermal pools bubble in frozen valleys, a reminder that this is one of the youngest lands on Earth, still being shaped. And yet, amid these forces, life has taken root. Puffins nest in seaside cliffs, Arctic foxes roam across the tundra, and small fishing towns cling to the coasts, living in rhythm with the sea. Iceland is more than a landscape. It is a living system, shifting, restless, and endlessly surprising. For those who visit, and for those who call it home, it offers a rare glimpse of how Earth was and how it continues to be remade. Join us as we follow the forces that never sleep. Fire rising from the sea, glaciers carving the land, rivers of meltwater shaping valleys, and life adapting at the very edge of survival. This is Robert Beckham, and you are watching Earth Wonders. When we think of Iceland, one word rises first: volcanoes. This island was born of fire, and even now, its surface still carries the marks of creation. Valleys, mountains, coastlines, all carved by eruptions that began deep below the sea. Here, the ground itself is alive. Iceland sits on a fault line between continents. The North American plate drifts one way, the Eurasian plate the other. As they part, the Earth opens. From the depths, molten rock rises to the surface. Nowhere else in Europe is this process so visible. The very forces that shaped continents and oceans are laid bare on this small island in the North Atlantic. Eruptions here are not rare. They are part of a cycle, as natural as the changing seasons. On average, one occurs every 4 to 5 years. Iceland has around 130 volcanic mountains, and more than 30 of them are considered active. Some eruptions are modest, lava flowing quietly into empty valleys. Others are dramatic, throwing ash into the skies, blocking the sun, and forcing rivers to reroute their course. Each eruption leaves behind a new chapter in Iceland's story. The land tells that story clearly. Vast stretches of basalt extend across the island, hardened into ridges and plains where lava cooled. Craters dot the countryside, some filled with water, forming striking blue lakes, others lying empty and silent. steam drifts from fissures in the ground, a constant reminder that the Earth here is restless. Iceland is one of the youngest landmasses on the planet, still in the process of being written. What looks barren at first is slowly transformed. Mosses are often the first pioneers. They cling to cooling rock, spreading in soft green blankets. Their roots release acids that break stone into soil. In time, grasses take hold, followed by shrubs. Birch and willow, the only native trees hardy enough for this environment, anchor themselves where once there was only ash. It is a slow process measured in centuries, but from fire, new life begins. Animals follow. The Arctic fox, Iceland's only native land mammal, hunts across the edges of lava fields, seeking out birds and rodents that live among the rocks. Reindeer, brought here in the 18th century, graze on lichens that creep into the cracks. In summer, seabirds arrive in vast numbers. Puffins, guillemots, and kittiwakes fill the skies, nesting on the cliffs formed by ancient eruptions. Their cries echo over the black stone, turning what was once a wasteland into a thriving colony. The link between volcanoes and wildlife is not always obvious, but it is profound. Cliffs created by old flows now provide secure nesting grounds for millions of birds. Lava plains, once deadly, are slowly colonized by plants, which in turn sustain insects, grazing sheep, and foxes. Even crater lakes formed in eruptions become habitats for fish and aquatic life. Fire, once destructive, sets the stage for ecosystems to emerge. And yet, despite the danger, people live here. They always have. To an outsider, it may seem impossible. Towns standing near volcanic systems, farms beside lava fields. But for Icelanders, fire is not only a threat, it is a resource. The same heat that drives eruptions is tapped to power homes and cities. Wells reach into underground reservoirs, bringing up steam and boiling water. Nearly 90% of Iceland's households are heated this way. Streets remain ice-free in winter. Greenhouses glow with warmth even in the dark months, and electricity is generated without burning fossil fuels. Few countries in the world use their natural energy so completely, and it exists here because of volcanoes. This relationship is unusual. In most places, volcanoes are feared as disasters. Here, they are woven into the fabric of life. The same forces that once destroyed land now sustain it. Swimming pools, kitchens, and entire cities are warmed by heat rising from the depths. It is a balance of risk and reward unlike anywhere else. But Icelanders know that balance can shift. A single eruption can undo years of work. Ash can blanket farmland, making grazing impossible. Sudden floods, called jökullaups, occur when lava melts ice caps, sending torrents rushing downstream. Communities may be forced to abandon homes or fields. It has happened many times before, and it will happen again. Yet, the people return. They rebuild. Generation after generation, they adapt. Life here is not about resisting the land, but about living with it. That resilience defines Iceland's culture. To live here is to accept uncertainty. In most of the world, landscapes appear permanent. Here, they can change within days. A flat plain may vanish under lava. A new island may rise off the coast. The ground may open without warning. And still, farming continues. Fishing boats set out to sea. Children go to school. Sometimes the reach of an eruption extends far beyond this small island. In 1783, the eruption of Loki released so much gas and ash that it poisoned fields across Iceland and cooled climates in Europe. In 2010, the eruption of Eyjafjallajökull sent ash clouds into the atmosphere, grounding flights across half the globe. A reminder that the forces at work here connect to the wider world. But most eruptions are quieter. They happen in remote valleys, shaping the land in ways only visible from above. Some build new cones. Others extend the coastline into the sea. Over time, these events accumulate. They have built Iceland itself, layer by layer. This island is one of the few places on Earth where creation is still visibly underway. Visitors are drawn to this rawness. They come to see glowing lava, steaming vents, and landscapes so young that life has yet to take root. For them, it is like stepping back into Earth's earliest days. But for Icelanders, it is part of the ordinary rhythm of life. They do not wonder if another eruption will come. They simply ask, when? Volcanoes are more than geological features. They are the foundation of Iceland's existence. They destroy, they create, they nurture, they threaten. Without them, there would be no Iceland at all. With them, the island continues to grow. A land forever caught between fire and life. If volcanoes are Iceland's fire, then glaciers are its counterweight. They are the island's vast reservoirs of ice. Silent, immense, and equally powerful. Covering more than 10% of the country, these frozen giants dominate the landscape and the climate. And like the volcanoes, they are never still. The largest is Vatnajökull, a glacier so vast it alone accounts for 8% of Iceland's total land area. Beneath its surface, volcanoes continue to simmer, hidden under hundreds of meters of ice. When they erupt, the results are dramatic. The heat melts the glacier from within, releasing sudden floods called jökullaups that roar across the plains below. Few natural forces are as destructive or as awe-inspiring as these sudden outbursts of ice and water. Glaciers are the architects of Iceland's valleys and fjords. During the last ice age, thick sheets of ice advanced and retreated across the island, carving deep troughs, gouging mountains, and leaving behind the dramatic landscapes we see today. Even now, they grind the bedrock, transporting rock and sediment as they slowly creep forward. In geological terms, glaciers are sculptors, chiseling, polishing, and shaping the land. And yet, they are also fragile. In recent decades, warming temperatures have caused many of Iceland's glaciers to retreat. Entire tongues of ice that once reached far down into valleys have shrunk back by kilometers, Some, like the small glacier Okyokul, have disappeared completely. Where once there was ancient ice, now there is only bare rock. For Icelanders, this change is not abstract. It is visible, year by year, valley by valley. From these glaciers flow Iceland's rivers. Fast, cold, and brimming with energy. In summer, when meltwater is at its peak, torrents cascade down from the ice, feeding streams that become thundering waterfalls. Few countries have so many waterfalls in so small an area. Skogafoss, Gullfoss, Dettifoss, each one a spectacle in its own right. Dettifoss in the northeast is often called the most powerful waterfall in Europe, its roar echoing across the canyon it carved. These waterfalls are more than natural wonders. They are engines of power. Hydroelectric dams harness the force of these rivers, providing much of the nation's electricity. Like geothermal energy, this is a resource Iceland has turned into an advantage: clean, renewable, and abundant. In a land where fire and ice often seem at odds, together they sustain modern life. The role of glaciers extends far beyond energy. They are also reservoirs of fresh water, feeding ecosystems across the island. Cold streams run through mossy valleys, supporting fish like Arctic char and brown trout. Birds gather along the riverbanks to feed, while foxes prowl the edges in search of prey. In summer, when millions of migratory birds arrive, these rivers and lakes provide vital nesting grounds. The link between glaciers and wildlife is ancient. Crater lakes formed by ice and fire become rich wetlands. Hosting whooper swans, grey-lag geese, and countless smaller species. Seals haul out on icebergs in the glacial lagoons, resting between fishing forays in the North Atlantic. Even offshore, the nutrients carried by meltwater support life in the surrounding seas. The pulse of Iceland's ecosystems is tied to the seasonal rhythms of melting ice. For humans, glaciers are both challenge and resource. They block travel across the interior, forcing most settlements to cluster along the coasts. But they also provide fresh water, fertile soils from glacial sediment, and opportunities for exploration. Modern Iceland has built an entire industry around them: glacier hiking, ice cave tours, lagoon boat rides. Visitors come to stand on the ice, to hear it crack beneath their feet, and to see firsthand the scale of these frozen rivers. But alongside the wonder lies unease. The retreat of glaciers is one of the clearest signs of climate change in the north. Each summer, scientists measure their edges, recording how far they have shrunk. The loss is not only aesthetic, It affects water flow, ecosystems, and even the stability of volcanoes that lie beneath. The balance between fire and ice is delicate, and as the ice diminishes, that balance shifts. Still, for now, Iceland remains a land of waterfalls and ice. Stand before Gullfoss and you feel the spray on your face, carried on winds that sweep across the plateau. Visit Seljalandsfoss and you can walk behind the curtain of water, watching sunlight break into rainbow mist. These are not hidden corners. They are central to Iceland's identity, as iconic as its volcanoes and just as alive. Glaciers and waterfalls embody contrast. They are slow-moving, yet unstoppable. They carve with patience, yet crash with thunder. They hold within them both fragility and power. In their presence, one understands why Iceland is called a land of extremes, a place where opposites meet, where fire is balanced by ice, and where life depends on both. Iceland is an island, and its edges tell as much of its story as its fiery heart. Stretching for more than 4,900 kilometers, the coastline is longer than that of many nations, many times its size. Every curve, every inlet, every headland is shaped by two relentless forces, the sea and the ice. Together, they have carved one of the most dramatic shorelines on Earth. In the north and the east, the land is indented with fjords, deep, narrow inlets carved by glaciers during the last ice age. Here, sheer cliffs rise from the sea, and quiet villages sit sheltered at the water's edge. These fjords once held walls of ice, slowly retreating, gouging the valleys deeper as they went. Today, they are filled by the ocean, providing safe harbors where otherwise there would be only open coast. To the south, the character is different. Here, the Atlantic is wilder. Black sand beaches stretch for miles, their color born of volcanic rock ground fine by waves. At Reynisfjara, the sands are bordered by great basalt columns, rising like organ pipes from the sea. Offshore, stacks of stone stand alone, battered endlessly by waves. Few places capture Iceland's contrasts more clearly. Rock created in fire, shaped by ice, and broken by the sea. The western tip of Iceland is dominated by the Westfjords, one of the most remote and rugged regions in the country. Roads twist around steep cliffs. Waterfalls plunge directly into the sea. It is here that seabirds gather in their millions. The cliffs of Latrubjarg are home to puffins, guillemots, and razorbills, nesting shoulder to shoulder on the ledges. For the birds, these cliffs are safety, far from foxes or other predators. For humans, they are a reminder of abundance. For centuries, communities here harvested eggs and birds, balancing survival with respect for the colonies that returned each summer. The coast is also the domain of marine mammals. Seals haul out on rocky shores, basking in the weak northern sun. Offshore, Waite's whales follow the rich waters where cold currents mix with warmer streams, stirring nutrients from the depths. More than 20 species have been recorded here, from minke and humpback whales to the giants of the deep, the blue whales. Each summer, these waters become feeding grounds, attracting animals from across the North Atlantic. This richness of life is tied to the sea itself. Iceland sits in the path of powerful currents that circulate through the Atlantic. Where warm and cold waters meet, plankton flourishes. Fish gather in enormous numbers, herring, cod, capelin, forming the base of an ecosystem that reaches from the smallest seabird to the largest whale. For Icelanders, the sea has always been both lifeline and threat. With an interior of glaciers and lava fields, much of the island was too harsh to settle. Instead, communities clustered along the coasts, close to fishing grounds. Boats became lifelines. Cod, in particular, sustained families for generations, and even shaped Iceland's history. In the 20th century, disputes over fishing rights with larger nations became known as the Cod Wars, a struggle for survival in modern form. Today, fishing remains a cornerstone of the economy, with harbors filled by trawlers that bring in the daily catch. Life by the sea is never easy. Storms sweep in suddenly, bringing waves that can overturn boats and winds that lash the coast with salt spray. Entire communities have been lost to shipwrecks. Lighthouses dot the coastline, standing as sentinels against the dangers of the Atlantic. For centuries, survival meant reading the weather with care, and sometimes accepting the sea's toll. Yet the coast also provided connection. From these harbors, Icelanders reached out to the wider world. Trade, culture, and eventually tourism all flowed through the ports. Even today, while Reykjavik is the capital and the heart of modern life, its role as a port remains vital. Ferries connect distant communities, fishing fleets head into the North Atlantic, and cruise ships bring visitors eager to see the edge of Europe's frontier. Nature and people are not the only ones bound to the coast. The sea shapes the land itself. Each winter, storms erode the beaches, carrying away sand and reshaping the shoreline. In some places, farms and even roads are threatened as the ocean steadily advances. In others, rivers carry sediment from the interior, building new deltas and sandbanks. It is a coastline in constant motion, where permanence is rare. But for all its dangers, the coast is also a place of extraordinary beauty. On summer evenings, when the sun barely dips below the horizon, the cliffs glow with soft light. The calls of seabirds echo across the fjords. Whales surface offshore, their breaths rising like mist. And on stormy days, waves pound the rocks with a force that humbles anyone who stands to watch. Wildlife depends on these rhythms. Puffins spend most of their lives at sea, returning each spring to nest in burrows along grassy cliff edges. Arctic terns make one of the longest migrations on Earth, traveling from Antarctica to breed here each year. Seals give birth to pups on quiet beaches. All of them tie their survival to the cycles of the ocean. to the shelter offered by Iceland's rugged coasts. The human story mirrors this dependence. Fishing villages are small but tightly knit, bound together by the risks and rewards of the sea. Harbors bustle in summer, but in winter storms, boats may stay grounded for weeks. It is a rhythm that shapes daily life, just as it shapes the lives of the animals that share the coast. The coastline of Iceland is more than a boundary. It is a living system where land, sea, ice, and fire meet. It sustains life, human and wild alike, and constantly reminds those who live here of the power of nature. At first glance, Iceland seems like a land too harsh for life. Lava fields stretch for miles. Glaciers lock valleys in ice, and storms sweep in from the Atlantic. Yet in this stark environment, life not only survives, it thrives. Unlike other northern lands, Iceland has relatively few native species. The island rose from the sea only about 20 million years ago, carried upward by fire. Too young to carry ancient forests or a wide diversity of animals, it had to be colonized slowly, carried by wind, waves, and wings. The Arctic fox was the pioneer. It is the island's only native land mammal, arriving long before humans, crossing sea ice at the end of the last ice age. Small, resourceful, and adaptable, it endures some of the harshest winters in the north. In summer, it hunts birds and rodents. In winter, it scavenges along the coasts, following the sea's bounty. The fox is perfectly suited to a land where food is never guaranteed. Its coat shifting from brown to white with the seasons. Later, humans brought other mammals: sheep, cattle, horses, dogs, even reindeer in the 18th century. Some, like the hardy Icelandic horse, have become symbols of the nation. But wild land mammals remain scarce. It is the air and the sea that hold Iceland's greatest richness of life. Each spring, millions of seabirds arrive. They nest on the cliffs, crowding every ledge and grassy slope. Puffins dig burrows in soft soil, their bright beaks flashing as they bring back fish. Guillemots, razorbills, and fulmars crowd the sheer rock faces, clinging shoulder to shoulder. Above, Arctic terns wheel through the skies, birds that have traveled from Antarctica, making the longest migration on Earth, only to breed here on the edge of the Arctic Circle. For the birds, Iceland is both sanctuary and battleground. Cliffs provide safety from predators, but storms can sweep nests into the sea. Food is abundant in summer as fish shoals gather in the rich waters offshore. Cod, herring, and capelin fill the seas, chased by gannets diving from above and whales rising from below. In these brief months of light, life explodes across the island's shores. Inland, wetlands formed by glacial rivers become breeding grounds for swans and geese. Whooper swans return in large flocks, their calls carrying across the valleys. Greylag geese graze on fields and marshes, sharing the land with farmers' sheep. Each has carved a niche in a landscape that often seems unforgiving. The seas around Iceland hold even greater diversity. More than 20 species of whales and dolphins are found in these waters. Minke whales breach close to shore. Humpbacks migrate north each summer to feed, their flukes lifting dramatically from the waves. Orcas patrol the coasts, hunting herring, and from time to time, even the blue whale. The largest creature ever to live on Earth passes through these northern seas. For many visitors, to see a whale surface against the backdrop of glaciers and volcanoes is the defining image of Iceland. Seals are common along the coasts, both harbor and gray seals resting on rocky outcrops. For centuries, they were hunted for meat and oil, but today they are more often watched by tourists than pursued. Offshore, fish stocks remain vital, not just to wildlife, but to human survival. Iceland's history has been tied to cod and herring, species that also sustain seabirds, whales, and seals. Here, ecology and economy are deeply intertwined. Yet survival in Iceland is always a challenge. Winters are long and dark, food supplies unpredictable. For birds, migration is the answer. Most leave when the season turns, heading south. For the foxes and seals that remain, it is a matter of endurance. Each species has evolved strategies, thick coats, bat reserves, camouflage, to outlast the cold. The fragile balance of this wildlife is shaped by the same forces that shape the land. Volcanoes can bury grazing grounds in ash. Glacial floods can sweep away wetlands. Climate change now adds another pressure, shrinking glaciers, altering fish migrations, and disrupting the timing of food supplies. For Arctic terns arriving from the far south, a mismatch between hatching chicks and available fish could mean the difference between survival and collapse. And yet, the resilience of Iceland's life is striking. Year after year, the birds return, the foxes den, the whales migrate. For them, this island of extremes is not a barrier, but a home. For humans too, wildlife has always been central. Early settlers hunted birds, gathered eggs, and fished the seas. Today, many communities rely on ecotourism, visitors who come to see puffins, to watch whales, to witness life on the edge of the Arctic. But beneath the economy lies something deeper, a recognition that Iceland's identity is inseparable from its living world. Stand on a cliff at Latrebjarg in midsummer, and you are surrounded by the cries of seabirds, the rush of wings, the endless sea below. Watch a fox dart across a lava plain, its coat blending with the rock. See a whale's breath rise offshore, drifting like mist in the cold air. These moments are reminders that even in the harshest of places, life finds a way, and often in the most spectacular forms. Iceland's wildlife is not rich in number of species, but it is rich in abundance and scale. It is a land of colonies, migrations, and seasonal transformations. And it endures because each creature, from the smallest insect to the largest whale, has adapted to the cycles of fire, ice, and sea that define this island. In Iceland, time is measured differently, not just by the clock or the calendar, but by light and darkness, by the sweep of storms across the sky, by the length of days that stretch into nights, and nights that never seem to end. At this latitude, seasons are extreme. In summer, the sun scarcely sets. For weeks, the land is bathed in a soft glow, as if dusk lingers forever. Fields turn green, rivers swell with meltwater, and wildlife flourishes. It is a season of urgency. For in Iceland, summer is short. Plants race to grow, animals to breed, people to harvest. Every moment of light is precious. Then comes winter. Darkness descends, not for hours, but for months. In the north, the sun disappears completely, replaced by twilight at noon and long nights pierced only by the glow of stars and the flicker of the aurora borealis. Storms roll in from the Atlantic, lashing the coast with wind and snow. Temperatures fall, rivers freeze, and the land becomes silent beneath ice. For animals, these cycles are a matter of survival. Birds time their arrival with the burst of summer abundance. Puffins and Arctic terns return when fish are most plentiful. By the time darkness falls again, they are gone, migrating south across oceans. Reindeer grow thick winter coats, feeding on lichens beneath the snow. The Arctic fox changes its fur from brown to white, blending with the frozen tundra. Each creature has adapted to these extremes, knowing that in Iceland, timing is everything. For plants, too, the rhythm is stark. Meadows bloom almost overnight once the snow melts, carpeted with buttercups, lupines, and dwarf birch. But within weeks, frost returns. Trees remain stunted, shrubs cling low to the ground, moss and lichen dominate. All shaped by a climate that allows little time for growth. For people, the seasons bring both hardship and resilience. In summer, work begins early and ends late, using every hour of daylight. In winter, life contracts. The long nights have shaped culture as much as the land. Yet winter is not only a time of hardship. The skies come alive with the aurora borealis, green and red curtains of light sweeping across the heavens. For many, the northern lights are the reward for enduring the long nights. A natural wonder that belongs to places touched by both magnetic forces and Arctic skies. Still, for now, Iceland's seasons continue to define the island's identity. They are written into every valley, every coast, every community. They demand flexibility, endurance, and respect. Stand in Iceland in midsummer, and you may watch the sun touch the horizon at midnight before rising again, as if the world never rests. Stand here in midwinter, and you may walk at noon under skies as dark as twilight, waiting for the briefest flicker of sun. Both are Iceland. Both are essential. The rhythm of seasons here is not gentle. It is bold, dramatic, unrelenting. And it is this rhythm of light and dark, of abundance and scarcity, of calm and storm, that has shaped every living thing on the island. From moss to whale, from fox to farmer. For all its glaciers and volcanoes, fjords and storms, Iceland is also a place of people. Fewer than 400,000 call this island home, a population smaller than many single cities, spread thin across a land larger than Portugal. In a country of such extremes, survival has always meant adaptation. Most Icelanders live along the coast. The interior, with its glaciers, deserts of lava, and storm-swept highlands, remains largely uninhabited. Here, towns cluster around fjords and bays, sheltered from the Atlantic's force. Reykjavik, the capital, is the heart of modern life, home to more than a third of the nation. But beyond it, small fishing villages and farming communities define the rhythm of daily existence. Fishing has long been the backbone of Iceland's survival. For centuries, cod was the currency of life. Boats set out into the North Atlantic, braving unpredictable weather for the catch that fed families and built trade with the wider world. Even today, fishing remains a pillar of the economy, providing export income and daily meals alike. In harbors from the West Fjords to the southeast, trawlers field come and go, their decks stacked with fish that sustain both Iceland and nations abroad. On land, farming persists in a form shaped by the environment. Vast fields of grain are impossible in a climate this harsh. Instead, hardy sheep graze on pastures nourished by glacial sediments and volcanic soils. The sheep provide wool, meat, and milk, staples of the Icelandic table for centuries. Horses, small and strong, are another constant. The Icelandic horse, descended from animals brought by Norse settlers, is renowned for its stamina and unique gait, suited to the rough terrain. Daily life is also tied to energy, not through scarcity, but abundance. Iceland's geothermal resources allow homes to be heated year-round with water drawn from beneath the ground. In winter, sidewalks in Reykjavik remain free of ice, warmed by pipes that circulate hot water. Greenhouses glow in the darkness, producing vegetables in a land that could not otherwise sustain them. This reliance on the Earth's own heat makes Iceland one of the most sustainability societies in the modern world, with nearly 100% of electricity generated from renewable sources. Yet, living here is not only about harnessing resources. It is also about endurance. Winters are long and dark. Summers short and intense. Storms can cut off entire villages for days. Travel across the highlands remains dangerous for much of the year. Communities survive not through isolation, but through cooperation. The tradition of helping neighbors through harsh seasons is woven into the culture as tightly as the wool of a sweater. That culture is distinctive. Icelanders have preserved their language with remarkable purity, still close to the Old Norse spoken by their ancestors. Literature and storytelling remain central, from the medieval sagas to modern novels and music. Perhaps it is no surprise that in long winters, when the world outside lies dark and frozen, the people turned inward, creating, writing, and singing. Today, Iceland's artists and musicians are celebrated worldwide. But their roots lie in those centuries of quiet endurance. Life here is shaped as much by nature as by tradition. Children grow up aware of the land's power. Volcanoes that may erupt, glaciers that may flood, storms that sweep across the sea. But they also grow up with resilience, learning that these forces are not to be conquered, but to be respected. For many, outdoor life remains central. Hiking, riding, fishing, bathing in hot springs. The landscape is not a backdrop. It is part of daily routine. Modern Iceland has comforts undreamed of by earlier generations. The capital thrives with technology, culture, and international connections. Tourism has grown rapidly, bringing visitors eager to see the raw beauty of the island. But even in Reykjavik, nature is never far away. Within an hour, one can reach glaciers, volcanoes, or crashing waterfalls. Few countries have such wildness so close to their cities. Yet, challenges remain. The economy is fragile, dependent on fisheries, energy exports, and tourism. Climate change threatens glaciers and ecosystems that shape both culture and livelihood. Volcanic eruptions continue to remind everyone that the land is not fully tamed. To live here is to accept that stability will never last forever. Still, for Icelanders, this is home. A home built on extremes, but also on resilience and community. To walk through a fishing village at dawn with boats heading to sea, or across a farm where sheep graze beneath volcanic ridges, is to see a way of life that has endured for centuries. To step into Reykjavik's streets, warmed by underground heat, is to glimpse how tradition and modernity have merged in one of the world's most unusual nations. Life at the edge of fire and ice is not easy, but it has created a people as enduring as the land itself. Resourceful, adaptable, and deeply connected to the rhythms of a restless island. Iceland is more than an island. It is a meeting place of forces. Fire rising from the mantle, ice pressing from above, seas that never rest, and skies that swing between endless light and endless dark. Few places show so clearly that Earth is alive, restless, and unfinished. Here, volcanoes remind us that creation is not confined to the past. New land is still being born. Glaciers, though retreating, continue to carve valleys and shape rivers. Stand on the coast and you see cliffs alive with birds, seas patrolled by whales. Walk inland and you find moss creeping across old lava, foxes patrolling the tundra, sheep grazing beneath volcanic ridges. Step into a village and life continues in quiet rhythm. Boats setting out at dawn. Homes warmed by the earth itself. Voices preserving a language as old as the land. Iceland is often called the land of fire and ice, but it is also a land of balance, of creation and destruction, fragility and resilience, solitude and community. It is a reminder that our world is never static. It is always moving, always changing, always alive. This is Robert Beckham, and you are watching Earth Wonders.